Soon, this house would be sold, and we'd be moving into a high-rise condo. That much had already been decided. You better start looking for a new place, my mother, Karen, sneered. Then came the real blow. You don't actually think you're getting a single dime of Dad's inheritance, do you? My sister, Ashley, taunted, her expression a twisted mask of cruelty. We're making sure you relinquish your rights to it. You got that, Maggie? Ashley's boyfriend stood off to the side, laughing, a cruel, mocking sound that only deepened the wound. Our father's funeral had just ended, and here they were, already scheming about money. It was unbearable. I snapped, "You are the absolute worst. I can't take this anymore. I'm done with you all." The moment the words left my lips, the doorbell rang. Standing outside was a man I felt like I had met before. "My name is Maggie, I'm 22, about to graduate from university, not a huge achievement, but I take pride in my hard work. I've always been diligent, keeping my head down and focusing on my studies. I may not be the most outgoing person, but I have dreams I want to achieve. Still, there's something that weighs on me every day." "Maggie, get down here now." The sharp voice of my mother, Karen, echoed through the house. With a sigh, I shut my textbook and trudged downstairs, only to find my mother and Ashley waiting. "What is it?" "I was studying." Ashley smirked, still playing the nerd. "Huh? University's almost over, and you're still glued to books? Such a tryhard." Ashley, the perfect image of our mother, beautiful, glamorous, and once a popular model. Now, she lounged at home under the excuse of helping around the house, though she did nothing of the sort. "We're going shopping," Mom announced. "You can take care of the housework, do the dishes, laundry, and don't forget to iron. Oh, and we're out of detergent. Pick that up too." I swallowed my frustration. Arguing would only lead to more trouble. "Okay," I muttered. They left without another word, while I stayed behind, sighing as I surveyed the mess they'd left behind. This was my life. Mom, a former beauty queen, always sought luxury, spending freely and favoring my sister, the golden child. As for me, I was the ignored, plain daughter, the one they treated like a live-in maid. I had endured it all, telling myself that, in the end, we were still family. Then, my phone rang. "Dad," my voice brightened instantly as I saw his name on the screen. "Hey, Maggie," came his warm voice. "How have you been?" "I'm great, what about you? It's late where you are, right? How's work?" "I'd like to say I'm fine, but I've been having headaches lately," he admitted. "I plan to see a doctor soon." "And you? How's school?" "Dad, take care of yourself, okay?" "I will." "And you? Still working hard towards your dream?" "Of course, I'm doing my best." "That's my girl," he said warmly. "Remember what I always tell you? Be righteous and kind," I recited. "That's right," he chuckled. "I'll bring you souvenirs next time I come home." I held on to his words, the only real warmth I had in this house. My father, Harry, was an elite businessman, always traveling for work. Though he was often away, he never made me feel unloved. He was the only one who truly cared about me. To my mother and sister, however, he was nothing more than an ATM. They lived lavishly off his hard-earned money without a second thought. Still, as long as he was around, I had something to hold on to. Then, everything changed. A few months after I graduated, my mother burst into my room, her face pale. "Maggie, your father." He had collapsed at the airport the moment he landed. He was rushed to the hospital, unconscious. When we arrived, the doctor's words hit like a punch to the gut. "A severe stroke," he explained. My strong, dependable father was now frail and barely able to speak. His body was paralyzed. From that moment, I made a choice. I put my dreams on hold and dedicated myself to taking care of him. Karen and Ashley, on the other hand, barely acknowledged him. They refused to help, acting as if he were a burden. "Mom, Ashley," I pleaded one day, "if you visited Dad, I'm sure it would make him happy." "We're too busy," they said dismissively. And so, I took on everything. "Dad, today was a beautiful day," I'd tell him. He'd struggle to respond, his voice weak. "Thank you." I learned everything I could about caregiving. I made sure he could see outside, prepared meals he could eat, and kept fresh flowers in his room. Even with the help of professional caregivers, I gave everything I had to ensure he was comfortable. Because he was my father. Because he had always been there for me. Whenever I felt like breaking down, I remembered his words. "Maggie, always be righteous and kind." And each time, It gave me the strength to keep going. One afternoon, as I moved through the house, I heard whispers coming from the living room. Curious, I stopped just outside the door, my heart pounding. Thanks to Dad's insurance payout, I finally bought that designer bag I wanted, my mother, Karen, said with a satisfied chuckle. Ashley's voice followed, light and carefree. I know, right? Thanks, Dad. Maybe I should get a new wallet too. I clenched my fists, willing myself to stay silent, but my mother's next words made my breath hitch. If your father were gone, we'd receive a few $100 million from his life insurance and inheritance. He saved up so much through work and investments. Ashley gasped, then giggled. Wow, Mom, we should totally buy a luxury condo, and my boyfriend could move in with us. Oh, I wish Dad would just hurry up and die. A cold chill ran down my spine. I couldn't listen anymore. My father was fighting to stay alive, and yet here they were, treating his impending death as a payday. I rushed away, my stomach twisting in anger and despair. Lately, my mother and Ashley had been living lavishly, buying luxury goods, going on shopping sprees, even taking overseas vacations while my father and I stayed behind. But no matter how much their selfishness hurt, I couldn't bring myself to tell my father. He was already suffering enough. So, I kept my mouth shut and continued caring for him. Despite everything, my father had many visitors, friends, colleagues, people whose lives he had touched. They all adored him. One visitor stood out in particular. An older man in a suit and glasses often came by, always greeting me with a respectful bow before quietly conversing with my father. He carried himself with dignity, and though I wasn't entirely sure, I assumed he was someone from my father's company. Seeing how much my father was loved brought me comfort. I foolishly thought these days would continue. But then, a few months later, my father suffered another stroke. This time, he didn't recover. I sobbed, clutching his lifeless hand, unable to accept that he was gone. Even Karen and Ashley cried at the funeral, though whether their tears were real, I couldn't tell. Everything after that was a blur. I handled the wake, the funeral, the paperwork, because, of course, my mother and Ashley did nothing. They left it all to me, as if I were their servant until the very end. The funeral was packed with mourners, and flowers flooded in from those who had admired my father. Seeing the respect he had earned in life brought me some solace. But the peace didn't last. On the evening of the 7th day, after the initial mourning period had passed, my mother and Ashley called me into the living room. Ashley sat beside a man I barely knew, her so-called fiancé. He was undeniably good-looking, but there was something off about him. His cocky smirk and slicked-back hair reminded me of the kind of man who thought too highly of himself. Then I remembered, he used to be a male stripper. His name was John. I had a terrible feeling. So, my mother began casually, about your father's inheritance. I stiffened. Then she laughed lightly, her eyes glinting. We've decided to sell the house and move into a luxury condo, so you need to pack your things and leave. I gaped at her. What? Ashley smirked. We've already signed the contract. It's brand new, a high-rise with an amazing view. You've already signed? When? A month ago, I think, Karen said, waving a hand dismissively. A month ago? Dad was still alive then. Ashley rolled her eyes. Barely, he was practically dying. And anyway, he had plenty of money. It's all working out perfectly for us. I felt like I was going to be sick. Mom, Ashley. Dad's been gone for only a week, and you're already celebrating his inheritance? Ashley scoffed. Obviously, Mom, John, and I will be living in the condo. You, on the other hand, are a nuisance. You should hurry up and find some shabby little apartment for yourself. I turned to my mother, hoping, desperately, that she would say something different, but she just smiled cruelly. And don't get any ideas about Dad's inheritance, Ashley added. We're having you renounce it, got it? She stepped toward me, her expression menacing. John chuckled beside her, enjoying the show. Their greed, their entitlement, it was suffocating. You two are unbelievable, I spat. I can't take this anymore. I'm cutting ties with you both. They exchanged glances before bursting into laughter. Good, Karen sneered. Honestly, we'd be relieved. Ashley smirked. Yeah, one less burden to deal with. I trembled with rage, my fists clenched so tightly my nails dug into my palms. Then, ding-dong. The doorbell rang. I wiped my tears quickly, trying to steady my breath before opening the door. Standing outside was the older man who had often visited my father. He bowed deeply. Good evening, my condolences for your loss. I blinked, caught off guard. Thank you. Please, come in. But before I could step aside, he handed me a business card. Please check this. My name is Watson, an attorney assigned by your father. I glanced down. The card belonged to a well-known law firm, and a polished badge gleamed on his chest. I looked back up at him, stunned. A lawyer? This was unexpected. My mother, Ashley, and her boyfriend stepped out from behind the couch. Huh? What does a lawyer want with us? My mother asked, her voice tinged with skepticism. Watson, without missing a beat, responded coldly, I've come to discuss your husband's inheritance. Can we talk for a moment? He sat down in the living room, and my mother positioned herself directly across from him. Ashley and her boyfriend flanked her, while I was left to sit alone, facing them all. Watson pulled out several documents from his briefcase, looked around the room, and began speaking slowly. First, may I read your husband's will? My mother scoffed, her lips curling into a smirk. That man could barely move or speak, and yet he left a will? Just get on with it. Watson nodded solemnly. Then, allow me to read it. The testator, Harry, hereby bequeaths as follows. The testator leaves all property belonging to him to his second daughter, Maggie. A stunned silence filled the room. The testator designates the following as the executor of the will. Before Watson could finish, Ashley shot up from her seat. Hold on, what did you just say? The testator designates. No, the part before that, she demanded, her voice rising with disbelief. Watson adjusted his glasses and repeated, the testator, Harry, hereby bequeaths all property belonging to him to his second daughter, Maggie. I sat there frozen, too shocked to breathe, my heart raced in my chest, my mind struggling to comprehend what I'd just heard. What does that mean? My mother and Ashley both gasped in unison. Watson continued, unfazed by their outbursts. Next, I will read the postscript of the will, your father's final message. He paused and looked directly at me before reading aloud. Maddie, you gave up your precious dreams to care for me. I wasn't able to pay much attention to you because I was always working, but I truly appreciate everything you did. Thanks to you, I was able to pass away peacefully, fulfilled. Tears welled in my eyes, my breath catching in my throat. Maddie, always be kind and correct. I know you can do it. Your father will always be watching over you. Please, be happy. I couldn't hold back anymore. Tears streamed down my face as I sobbed uncontrollably. My mother and Ashley, however, erupted in outrage. What does that mean? So, the inheritance all goes to her? Yes, Watson answered calmly. What happens to our money? My mother's voice was high-pitched with fury. Watson glanced briefly at them, his expression icy. You two are not mentioned in the will. Maddie is also the sole beneficiary of the life insurance. My mother's face turned red with anger. What are you talking about? You can't just do that. Her voice trembled with rage. Ashley leaned forward, her face a mixture of disbelief and greed. Isn't there something called a reserved portion? Aren't wives and children supposed to get a guaranteed share? You're referring to the statutory reserve, Watson replied coolly. Yes, you two have the right to claim a statutory portion from Maddie's inheritance. Karen's smirk returned, her usual arrogance shining through. Even if there's a will, if its contents are unfair, we can claim a share under civil law. But Watson didn't flinch. He continued, his tone now grave. Harry commissioned us to investigate the fact that you, Karen, and you, Ashley, have been living luxuriously off his money, squandering the insurance payouts. You bought a luxury condo, a car, and spent excessively on host clubs and overseas trips. Meanwhile, all caregiving and household chores were left to Maddie. He paused, his gaze hardening. Moreover, there were even remarks made about hoping for Harry's death. Ashley and Karen's eyes widened in shock, their mouths hanging open. My father knew everything. My voice trembled as the truth crashed over me. He knew everything, but he pretended not to. And no. My mother stammered, unable to offer any explanation. Watson stood firm, his voice unwavering. Given these circumstances, it's highly unlikely that any court would find the distribution of the inheritance unfair. Even if you took it to court, your chances of claiming anything are near zero. Of course, you can try if you wish. He smiled coldly, but know this, I'll be the one standing against you. My mother went pale, her eyes wide with horror. That's ridiculous, she muttered under her breath, unable to comprehend what was happening. Ashley remained silent, her expression frozen in disbelief. As Watson left, I walked him to the door. Maddie, he said, his voice warm with kindness, you've grown into an admirable person. Your father always spoke of you with such joy. Really? My voice was a whisper, filled with emotion. I've known your father since we were young, and I was honored to carry out this request. Your father often felt he was too lenient with the others, but I believe he found peace knowing how well you turned out. Watson's gentle smile made my heart ache with gratitude. Tears welled up again, but this time they were tears of relief. Please, live a happy life from now on, and remember, I'm always here to help. With those words, Watson left, and I bowed deeply in thanks. A year later, with Watson's help, I officially inherited all of my father's assets. As for my mother and sister, my mother, unable to pay off the loans for the luxury condo, lost everything, the expensive car, the designer goods, everything was repossessed. She ended up going bankrupt. As for Ashley, her boyfriend dumped her when he realized she wouldn't inherit anything. I heard through the grapevine that she now lives with my mother, working part-time to scrape by. For a while, they kept calling me, but I only responded with a firm message. I've cut ties with you, please contact me through a lawyer. I truly believed that's what my father would have wanted. As for me, I used my father's inheritance to attend law school, something I had once given up on. Originally, I had dreamt of becoming a prosecutor, to uphold my father's values, always be kind and correct. But my dream has changed. After working with Watson, who supported me through the darkest time of my life, I realized that I wanted to be a lawyer. So now, I study harder than ever, working toward becoming a lawyer, one who is always just, always kind, just like Watson.